fucking weird. So Donald Trump is on CNBC. He's giving this interview. He says, we got to do something about the farmers because he says, we got to have these immigrant farm laborers because people in the inner cities won't do those jobs. What the hell is that supposed to mean? People in the inner cities won't do these jobs. Bro, that's an inside thought, bro. That is crazy. Then he goes on to say, oh, these are workers, they're like nobody else. I said to one of the farm owners, I said, what if this person gets a bad back? And he said, oh, they don't get a bad back because if they get a bad back, they die. What are you saying, dude? What is that even, what?
Sending them back, and then they're schooling, they're learning, they're coming in legally. We have a lot of that going on, but we're taking care of our farmers. We can't let our farmers not have anybody, these people, you can't replace them very easily. People that live in the inner city are not doing that work. They're just not doing that work. And they've tried, we've tried, everybody tried. They don't do it. These people do it naturally. I said, what happens if they get it to a farmer the other day? What happens if they get a bad back? He said, they don't get a bad back, sir, because if they get a bad back, they die. I said, that's interesting, isn't it?
Blatant, unfiltered racism. And I want to break this down line by line because it's not just offensive. It's dangerous. He said, we're sending them back. They're schooling. They're learning. Then they're coming in legally. Translation, if you're undocumented, you're disposable. He's saying immigrants have to be trained, disciplined, controlled. It's not policy talk. That's colonial language. That's racism. Then he goes on, we have to take care of our farmers. We can't let them not have anybody. So now immigrants aren't even people. They're labor. They're tools for white farmers. That's a plantation mindset straight up. Then he says, people in the inner city aren't doing that work. They just don't do it. We've tried. Come on. We all know what inner city means when he says it. That's code for black folks. He's calling us lazy without saying the word. It's the same lie this country's been telling since slavery ended, that black people are unwilling to work. And I, for one, tell you that's a damn lie. Then, and this is where it goes pretty dark, he says, these people do it naturally. Now he's talking about Latino immigrants, and he's saying they're born for this labor, born for back-breaking work.
America has decided it doesn't need all these poor people. It doesn't need cheap labor, or it doesn't need that much cheap labor. So what are they going to do? They're going to cut health services. They're going to cut Social Security. And a lot of those people are going to die. And that's a pretty conscious decision.
D.C., Washington, D.C. is going under federal policing because the prisons are underpopulated. The prisons do not have as many young black men as they thought that they would have, so that they could be receiving the $85,000 per bunk bed to have them. So now Trump is trying to round up as many black people as he can to overpopulate these prisons so that his billionaire people can continue to get more money from the government. All of the prisons here in America are privately owned. And all of them billionaires a couple weeks ago were just over in Monaco for the Grand Prix. So they are not receiving the profits that they once were receiving when crime and all of that was at its all-time high back in the 90s and the early 2000s and whatnot. Now our young black men are choosing to take a more positive route. So he's doubling down on just racking us up to put them in prisons because they missing out on that $85K a person.